Greetings and welcome back to another session of A Mind Transformed presents Golden Gems with the Garretts, Marriage Edition.
Woohoo!
You're back with your favorite couple. I'm Taven,
And I'm Katrina.
and today our topic is Hear My Heart. And we want to talk about having those difficult, maybe even uncomfortable conversations with your spouse about how you really feel about something they may have said or done, about something you want to see changed or improved in your marriage, about your future, your dreams, your vision for the marriage. Anything that you may feel could cause a conversation to be difficult or uncomfortable. And it's easy to say. People talk to their spouse all the time, but they may not actually share their heart for a variety of reasons. Some people, men, some women as well, really don't want to be vulnerable. Some people feel like they're going to be misunderstood. Some people feel that their words may be used against them later. And still others just want to avoid what they think is going to turn into confrontation and cause tension. And when that happens, you wind up burying things that need to be addressed alive. And nothing buried alive wants to remain that way. Everything once that's buried alive will fight and claw its way out. And then you'll wind up having a disagreement about something that's not even important or relevant just because something was buried alive.
Amen. So, failure to have those courageous conversations. Imagine just having landmines in your home. And the thing about a landmine is you don't know where it's placed until you step on it. So, imagine walking through your home and you step on a landmine and something blows up. And that explosion could have been the result of someone forgetting to unload the dishwasher. And there's this massive argument because the dishwasher wasn't unloaded. But really, there was a landmine. There was a trigger because there was a heart issue that was not either communicated or addressed that ended up materializing into you didn't unload the dishwasher. So
Mm-hmm.
this is why it's important so that we can remove those landmines in our marriage. We have to have those courageous conversations so
Yes.
that we can have a healthy resolve. And the challenge is to be listeners, to make sure that we don't allow our feelings to get in the way of the discussion. Because when our feelings get in the way, we then are start trying to fight for perspective. And issues of the heart has nothing to do about your perspective. It's about what I feel, what's going on in
Yes.
my heart, and allowing us to have that conversation so that we can pivot and placing weight and value on what is said.
Yes.
And the one thing I'll say is be careful because my husband was talking about you don't want it to be used against you. We must be careful as spouses that we don't use the issues of the heart as weapons of mass destruction in our marriages. We have to make sure that we handle them with care. Amen.
Yeah. Another thing about having being misunderstood or having someone else share your words. Sometimes men may not want to open up because their spouse talks to a lot of people, friends and family, and they don't want to hear these things come up later. And or they think that the words will be used, as Trina said, as weapons of mass destruction. But you have to have a safe space. You have to have a time and a place in your marriage where you can have that conversation where you know this doesn't leave the room. And I don't want you to use this against me. Because if not, it winds up hurting your marriage in the long run. Men, I get it, right? We were taught growing up, you can't have emotions. We could either be happy or angry because those were only two accepted emotions when we grew up, right? You couldn't cry. You couldn't express how you felt. You couldn't whine, as they said. So we were taught to be happy or angry. But God has emotions. Jesus has emotions. And there's nothing wrong with sharing those because you have them. Even if you bottle them up, you still have them. Ladies, the worst thing that you can do if he comes to you and has that heart to heart is use those words against him later or let him hear those words from one of your friends or your family. Because what you've just taught him in that moment is he can't trust you with his heart. And men, I stated before in another video, it's hard to gain a man's trust, but it's easy to lose.
And also, I just challenge you in this video to make sure that you start having those courageous conversations. Those areas where something happens and you completely shut down and you don't want to talk about it, that's something that you're burying. That's a landmine that's being set up where the enemy is going to use it later. So let's usurp the authority of the enemy in our marriages by having those conversations that we need to have in those safe spaces. One thing that me and my husband do sometimes, depending on the conversation, he'll get a this is a vault moment. And vault moment means it cannot be discussed in any other gathering other than with me and you. So sometimes setting those standards or setting that place that when I'm sharing this, what I'm about to share, I don't want to hear about this from anyone else because this is me sharing an issue of my heart that's about me, that's about the two of us. Amen.
And you have to have time. And sometimes you can't have that conversation when the emotions are raw. We don't recommend that's the time that have them because you always say they say cooler heads prevail. But set aside time later. Even if your spouse comes and says they want to have it now, but you know you're not in the right space to have that, say, can we talk about this later? And actually talk about it. Don't just keep deferring and putting it off. And when your spouse shares their heart, seek to understand what they're saying. Don't dismiss it. Proverbs 18:2 says, a fool doesn't seek to understand, only to share his opinion. You want to understand why your spouse feels that way, where they're coming from. The safe space that Trina and I have is usually when we're laying in bed. And we may not have had a conversation that entire day because both of us are reacting to something that happened. And then we're randomly laying in the bed at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. And one of us opens the door for the subject. And then we wind up talking for hours. And we gain a better understanding of one another. And it helps the solid foundation of our marriage moving forward. Because now I know if I do X, it affects her this way. And I know why. It's not something I could just say, I don't know why she feels that way. Who cares? But now when I understand, I have a reference point. It makes me react differently in those moments. And that's made our marriage stronger. 2022, we don't want your marriage just to survive. We want it to thrive. Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you for allowing us to invade your space once again. This was Golden Gems with the Garretts, Marriage Edition.
Woohoo!
Be blessed.